Welcome to another edition of Minot Matters here at the Dakota and brought to you by Shock Safe and Lock. I'm Jonathan Starr. Today we continue our interviews with the City Council, the Minot City Council candidates, and that continues with Scott Samuelson. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
Absolutely. So we'll start it off easy on you. Just tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. I'm not originally from Minot. I graduated from Bismarck High School, which is where I met my wife, Connie. I attended Dickinson State College before moving to Minot in 1989. We have two children that both graduated from Minot High School, and our daughter graduated from Minot State University, and our son just finished his first year at Minot State University.
Wow.
And I'm a licensed master plumber with the State Plumbing Board.
Gotcha. Do you run your own business or do you work for a company?
I work for the North Dakota State Plumbing Board.
Okay. Yeah. Very neat. Very neat. Okay. So you're from Bismarck originally. So obviously your goal is to bring in all the ideas from Bismarck to Minot, right?
Well, not necessarily. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Minot should kind of be its own.
Yeah,
Yep.
Absolutely. So you're just going about your life. You have a nice family. Kids are graduating from college, getting into college. And then all of a sudden there's this graphic that comes out on social media or a press release that we get in our email saying you're running for city council. How did that decision come about?
I think just over time, my biggest reason is property tax. Over the last 2 years, especially, I've been paying attention to city council, going to city council meetings, and I kind of feel that they're not listening to it. And, the property tax issue goes back many years. I think the last 12 years, people have really been paying attention to it, and it just seems like nothing's getting done.
Right. So that kind of puts you into the fire. And we've seen you at some of the city council meetings, especially I believe is some of the budget ones for the 2024 budget, where you were kind of expressing that. Are you concerned for the future of Minot if we continue down the road that we are going down?
I am with the taxes. Like I said, the property tax, it's really hard on younger folks and our retired, our seniors. It's hard to make ends meet when that bill keeps going up and up.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So I'm going to flip the script a little bit. We try to be loose on these things, right?
Okay.
You're on the forum, the city council forum. How was that experience? Did you enjoy that?
It was a little maybe nerve-wracking, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I think we got some good candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Did you feel, and this is something we've asked some other candidates, did you feel the 4:00 time for that? And this isn't a slam at the chamber, and this is really a question of, is this city listening to the people? That's something that you've already mentioned and that has come up with in every interview that we have, is how much listening is going on with city council and with city government. And I know that the chamber is the one that put on that, but they're also funded partially by the city. Do you feel like throwing it at 4:00 when a lot of people are at work was them listening to the citizens?
I don't know for sure. Everybody has lives and stuff and work and things. So I think that's hard to say. I mean, with the technology and stuff now, they're recorded. I think it was pretty well attended.
Yeah, it was.
And yeah, so.
Which is fantastic. And Mark did a fantastic job. All kudos to the forum that happened. All right, let's jump into property taxes. That's your key point. That's one of the key reasons why you're running. You went and wrote a letter about the Renaissance program that's going on. So we'll start there. Obviously, at the most recent city council meeting, that got a little bit of an update. But basically, this is designed to help downtown businesses mainly be able to make improvements to their building. There's a tax incentive that's given, or tax break that's given, and then maybe a little bit of funding as well. Is this something that should be going on?
I think, from what I understand and what I have read, I think the Renaissance Zone was started for blighted buildings,
right, and
things like that. And the investment that you have to make in those is pretty substantial. And I think for-profit businesses and things like that, I don't know that we should be doing that. And my point on it is, if you're giving tax breaks to them, I believe everybody else is making up for it.
Okay, right.
And to me, it's not fair, and it is for all of, I guess, Minot, because they do move those around, but they've been basically concentrating in downtown.
You've pointed out that since it's gone into place, there's been a 300% increase in a property, I believe it's property tax bill that you receive. So that's not really a fair thing, is basically your point with that?
Well, it is. And, I remember they talk a lot about, doing these things is to spread out, I guess, the burden of taxes. And, for the citizens, we don't see that because our tax bill keeps going up and up.
Right.
So.
Yeah. What's the solution to getting rid of this, or to stopping this increase?
Well, I think that we have to really look at our spending.
Okay.
I really think that's a big key, and in doing that, you have to look at everything. I think we have to look at how we're spending our tax dollars, and sales tax dollars with the economic development. I think that needs to be revamped and really looked at.
Okay. This is a double-sided question, plays into a couple of areas, but it does play into the property tax equation. What is your view that government should be playing in our city?
Well, if you go to economic development, I think the city should, work with the developers, set our policies and stuff that's good for them, and just kind of get out of the way.
All right. Yeah. So it's basically cover the fire, cover the public works, the utilities, the basic things that a city should do, and work with developers to be able to come in and just do their work and get out.
Right. Yeah. Supply the basic services.
Right.
To the city. Yep.
As minimally as possible. Yeah. Because I think that's a conversation that grows as time goes on, is how much services should be provided. And maybe even some would ask, well, what are those specific services that they should be providing? And it's an interesting question. We saw the government or city government try to play in some of the social issues with the Human Relations Committee, and ultimately that was voted down. But do you view that the city should be playing in like Human Relations Committee, stuff like that, where they're looking at discriminatory acts and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, there's plenty of laws and everything out there for that, and I think that's pretty well covered. City government, I don't think has a role in that. Okay. I don't think we should be making those kind of decisions.
Well, we'll jump back to the property tax issue because we just started. So the Renaissance Zone program, it's kind of the feeling is we shouldn't be giving tax abatements to certain businesses, for-profit businesses, while there's a lot of businesses outside of this zone that simply are not getting funding as well. It should be for them all, or for none of them. Is that correctly portrayed?
Well, that's what I believe, and I mean, if you look at that, I don't know how we could do it for all of them, other than eliminating property tax altogether, and that would solve it for, I guess, everyone.
Okay, and you mentioned that you are in favor of the resolution that's floating around, trying to get to the ballot in November. That would eliminate. They're running it as in unfair property tax. You're in favor of that?
Yes, I am.
Why?
People need tax reform, not tax relief.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that go to that, but a lot of the talk that I've had, I talked to the city government, and they can't do anything about it. You talk to the state government, well, they can't do anything about it because it's a city issue and it's spending issue. But the state makes all the rules.
Yeah.
And on how you collect it, and where you have to have the assessment values at. I think it's 96%, and so it goes both ways, but it gets thrown back and forth between city government and state government.
So it's just time to get rid of it altogether.
Well, it just the state, I believe, could cut a lot of spending too,
right?
And do that. And to me, this 12 years ago they had an initiated measure which failed, but the one thing we were promised by legislators was that they would fix it.
Yeah.
And we're still waiting for that fix, and in the meantime, property taxes just still keep going up.
So in the last 2 years, there has been no increase, minimal decrease in the mills. And 3 years ago, there was an increase in the mills. And so in 2022, there was an increase. 2023 and 2024, there was a decrease. That being said, in 2023 and 2024, we saw a 5% increase in property taxes both years. Kind of like how is the city going? They're telling us that they're not increasing the mills, right? And that's kind of what they're hiding behind. What does the city need to do in order to make sure that property taxes do not increase year over year if things continue as usual as they are right now, and there is no constitutional amendment that goes into place?
Well, I think for the city council, it comes down to spending, and it comes down to I believe as far as the spending issue, when it comes to that, is the employees of the city are probably the best asset we have.
Right.
They're the ones that can help us save money. I think we need to listen to all of them, on ways that we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were just in the budget tour where you got to hear how many hours?
Well, the first one was 12 and a half, I believe. And the second one, it was, I guess by the time we got done, it was probably about 12 hours too. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Was that fun?
It was really interesting. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Give us like your 3 top takeaways from this.
I think there's a lot of needs on
Right.
city property and stuff. My top thing I came away from is I don't know how efficient government is.
Okay.
Just in how they do things.
Right. And so maybe an example, and we talked about this on a different podcast, is budgeting for 13 policemen that we don't have, and that really we shouldn't have in a single year. Not saying we don't need them, but like what business goes in and hires 13 people in 1 year without having massive growth? And they would have to be a very large business to do that.
Yeah, you would. And I mean, we have to have our police officers, and I think that we need to do everything we can, to keep them and do what we can for them. I know there's talk on a few other, and they've already done this. They've put civilians in places that, where they can get officers on the street, and there's a few other places that they can probably do that. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and they're really doing a really good job. I went on the tour of the building when they had the open house, and that was very interesting.
Do they need a new facility?
Absolutely, they do. I was almost embarrassed just to see what that facility looked like. And actually, my son went with us, my wife and I, and we were going through it, and it was amazing to me. And the thought that we came away with, halfway through it is I was surprised that we have a new city hall before we had a new police department, just seeing what they've been working with.
That's incredible. So where does funding for something like that come from?
Well, I think we have to set priorities. Again, I think it should have been done before City Hall.
Right, yeah.
I believe that building can be repurposed for that. We just kind of need to make the decision to do it. And a lot of times we go through so many studies by the time we get there that we just, my wife jokingly said if we could get 4 women in there, they could probably organize that place and get it up, and we could, we wouldn't need to spend near as much money. But,
oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I like it. So how much, this is, you don't need to really answer this question, but how much money a year should we be spending on consultants?
Again, we have some really smart people
right.
that work for the city, and there's a lot of things that I think they could be doing. And some of the studies and stuff that we do in consultants, I think we know the answer before we even, before we do them. So
do you know where the need for the consultant comes from? Is it people that aren't willing to step out and risk their job by saying this is what we need to do, and so they hire a consultant, or is it something that's required by city in order to be able to make a decision?
I think it's some of all of that. I noticed with the budget tours and stuff, just I guess federal funds, there's so many hoops that you have to jump through.
Right.
for that. And I think during one of our meetings, I mentioned the fact that HUD, now we have the CBG funding that's coming. Mm-hmm. And part of that program is you have to do a housing study.
Okay.
We just got done with a housing study.
Wow.
And they're both HUD programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was mentioned during that we can use part of that other housing study, but not all of it. So we're going to do another housing study. So it's just, and that's the inefficiencies I'm talking about.
Right. And some of that just can't be fixed if we're going to get funding from federal government.
Well, you're right, and I think it starts with our local legislators too, helping with some of that, and our congressional delegation.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great point. It's a team game across government. We jumped down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I want to go back to the police. We mentioned the 13 people. And I'm not slamming the police department, but we had a really good conversation with actually somebody that you guys are running on the same sign with, bless them, about how some of that money could be used in other places because it's in the budget, but we don't have them employed. And like my point of, if there was 13 people that were able to work, you wouldn't want them all showing up on the same day anyways, because you're going to have to onboard them. You're going to have to train them. You're going to have to make sure that they have everything that they need in order to be able to get to work. And like you would be stretched very thin to hire 13 people in 1 week.
Right.
So is there something that should be done with giving room to allocate those funds either other places or having a hiring goal over a period of time? Is there, or is the way it is right now is the right way?
Well, I think, I can't see them being able to hire 13 officers, anyway, probably within even a given year. I think you need to set a goal. Is it 3 or 4 and put those in the budget and leave the other ones out? If it comes to the point where we need it, we could always, amend that budget. I know we don't, want to do that, but that would be a possibility. And I think work with the police department and the study that they just did, what they, actually need, and taking those out of the budget, that lowers the budget. So
right, yeah. It allows you to allocate funds somewhere else, like to a Broadway Circle project that took in nearly $1.4 million that the city kind of was forced into a position of having to take on. What's your thoughts on that? And is there something that could have been done differently so the city wasn't forced into that position?
I think a lot of it is the long-term planning of it to make sure that everything's in place. We're told that they went through everything was set. And, I didn't see any of that talk. So, I don't know that for sure, but I just think we need to make sure that when the ideas come up in the groups that are going to run this, that we know they can.
Yeah.
That's just, we have to make sure of that because it falls back on taxpayers and that's one, $1.3 million that we can't afford to do stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we have reserves that can fund it. We all know, we should all know how reserves work. Reserves aren't necessarily intended to be spent. But it's also interesting how those reserves get created as well, because it gets created from different surpluses that come up in the budget that get thrown into a reserve, and we raise taxes again. Should we be putting as much money into reserves as we are annually?
Well, I like the idea of, this year they're talking about zero-based budgeting, starting and taking everything that's actually needed. To me, then you're going to get to a point where you're not going to have, I don't say that they're big surpluses, but you're going to get closer to that's the needs at the end of the year. We appropriated the right amount of taxes, and you're zero at the end, I guess you could say.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. A topic that fights against property tax, or maybe not property tax specifically, but tax in general, is growth. If you talk to somebody about growth, typically they're going to be like, it takes money, so we need to raise taxes so we can have growth. At least that might be one point of view. Are these property tax issues that we're facing brought about because Minot is growing and is a booming community?
I kind of think the opposite. I think that property taxes do the opposite of. I think it stagnates growth.
Yeah.
And that's just you don't get as many people that come to town. I mean, they look at stuff like that, or you get somebody that comes here and they're here for 2 years and it's just like, wow, that's what we pay for property taxes. We might have to look for something else.
Yeah.
So I think it actually, to me, it works kind of the opposite.
So basically with property tax, we got this issue of property tax that drives up housing. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the property taxes drives up the affordability of housing, which is a problem that probably most of Minot would agree it is a problem in Minot of how affordable or not affordable houses are. People move away because it just doesn't make sense to raise a family when you're paying $1,500, $1,300 to $1,400 gets you a 3-bedroom, 2-bath duplex townhome that is stock. It looks just like the one next to it, right? Yep. You might be able to get a deal and get that. So that's what $1,300 to $1,500 gets you. That is expensive. That's a lot of money. That's difficult for a family to afford. They don't have a yard. They don't have a place really for their kids to hang out. And they can move to a place in Tennessee and in wherever it might be, and they get a better livability situation. So you have housing affordability. That's a problem. That's fighting growth.
Yep.
Property taxes is playing into this as well. What does Minot need to do? And it was some of the research that you did. 2016, it was estimated we're going to be close to 60,000 people in Minot by the year that we're currently living in.
Yep.
And instead, we have decreased by 100 to 200 people, which is a substantial number when you realize that it's almost 10 years we've actually decreased in population. What does Minot need to do to turn the table and actually begin to grow?
Well, I think it goes back to we got to limit the taxes and with the businesses and things like that. We need to watch what we're putting for regulation on them. To be able to build that and just stand back and
see. I think Minot sees a new Popeyes going,
yep.
And they see a new, now it's getting not new anymore, but Slim Chicken, and we get these restaurants, and it feels like we're growing. It feels like, oh, we're big enough to get a Popeyes now. That's what it feels like. And so, like, we hide in this cocoon that Minot is thriving. And it may still be thriving. I'm not here to dish all the bad stuff on Minot. But is Minot a thriving community? What do you feel is like the truth of the matter?
I think Minot's doing okay.
Okay.
The new restaurants, I don't know that really makes growth. We talk all the time that we don't have enough people to employ them.
Right.
You get a new restaurant. Well, where's the people coming from
it's
that
always
are working
the
there? It's taking from it's taking from somewhere else,
mm-hmm.
and they don't have employees either. So, it's more of it is a population thing, and I don't have the numbers for sure, but our population today is about the same as it was in 2012.
Wow, that's over 10 years for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned property taxes and stuff like that, but it does it purely just come down to that? Or I think the bigger question is, what does Minot need to do to acquire businesses that want to invest in Minot?
I think that Minot needs to get its budget under control. And then I really think that the community needs to get behind it.
Okay.
And, we talked a little bit earlier about that the city isn't listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that, I think, is just really understanding. I won't necessarily listen, but they have to also understand where people are coming from. And the tax issue, and it's a lot of taxes too, has been for a long time. You talk to any politician, which you've talked to a lot of them, they'll all tell you the main thing they hear is property tax.
Right.
That's the number one issue. And it's like the state government and city governments are not paying attention to that.
Right.
They do bring it up, but it's like do you want services? If you want services, you have to pay for it.
Right.
Well, it doesn't always come down to services. It's what we're giving in tax breaks to others and things like that.
So let's talk about one final thing with property taxes, and it's this 3-letter acronym that nobody knows what it is, but it's kind of a big deal, and that's called a TIF. That's given out, a tax increment financing, incremental financing, basically giving an abatement to businesses as they come in and do development. We've seen 2 examples, and we've pointed these out to every candidate that we've interviewed of it. One was the Big M building, and one was the tracks. Coincidentally, they're both, well, maybe not coincidentally, they're both given to the same corporation that came in to do the development. Yep. Is there an example of a TIF being used correctly in those 2 examples? And also, when should TIFs be used?
I probably could have. I don't know if I would have voted to, if I was on council for the Big M building. That would be a place where it should be used. For the tracks, I don't think that should be.
Why not?
Well, it's a big investment company that is doing it to make money, and I just don't think the taxpayers should be invested. I mean, if the taxpayers want to invest it, you and I could just go invest in the company.
Yeah.
Rather than taking our tax dollars and do it.
Right.
I don't think it's fair.
Do you think, and this is looking at a crystal ball, but I'm not really concerned about Epic, which is the company. I'm not really concerned about them specifically.
No, I'm not either. Yeah.
Do you think they should have had the interest? Doesn't matter about the company. Do you think the big corporation should have the interest to go ahead and build something, develop something like the tracks in Minot without a TIF incentive?
I think if it's economically feasible for them, absolutely.
Right.
Yep. Because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of developers and stuff that in town that are still in town that have helped build Minot.
Right.
And most of them that I talk to never have had a program like that.
Yeah, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting because there's the like who at this point who doesn't, and I'm going to use the word deserve, and I mean the word deserve. At this point, with the precedent of the Epic getting the TIF for the tracks, what kind of project doesn't deserve a TIF?
That doesn't deserve a TIF?
Yeah, because my point is the precedent is set. This is a multi-use development, and I think they tried to tie it to more of the community spaces and stuff like that is the reason why they're giving it. But this is something that is bringing in residential housing and is bringing in commercial stuff. So with that precedent, if you're going to set that as a precedent from the city,
yep,
what project wouldn't deserve a TIF?
I guess right now, yeah, I would be against any getting a TIF at this point. And just because of the way it's gone.
I'm not asking for your support of TIFs,
right,
but what I'm saying is if we set that precedent, then we're essentially we'd be giving out TIFs for every project.
Right.
And so then we would begin to, it would be a great place to develop for a couple of years because there'd be no taxes.
Yeah, but everybody would probably just move away.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're going to make up for that.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Eventually we have to care about the people. That's
what
I'm hearing.
That's the number one thing that we need to get back to. And when you have programs like that, you got to get the community behind it.
Right.
And the people behind it. And right now, the citizens don't believe the city of Minot's listening.
Yeah. And that brings us to an interesting point because there was a city satisfaction survey that was done where the citizens were able to voice their feelings. And I draw out three key points from the survey. Generally, we would probably consider Minot to be a safe place.
I do.
Yeah. And on the satisfaction survey, 44% felt Minot is becoming less safe. That's not saying they don't view it safe right now, but it's that 44% of Minot safe. That's not 50%, but that's a lot of Minot. 44% is a high percentage. It's saying that we're headed in a direction where they're feeling less safe. Is this something that should be a concern for Minot? We've seen a lot of gun use in the last, there have been a lot of trials with gun use, and I know that's happened at bars and stuff like that. And it's also happened outside of that. Is this safety in Minot? Should that be a concern?
I think we have to definitely look at that.
Yeah.
For sure. A lot of it, what I would like to see, a lot of the, the gun stuff that comes in and different drugs, things and stuff like that is where it's actually, is it from people that live here in Minot, or is it people coming from outside of Minot.
Yeah. Which brings in an interesting question, because that goes back to the growth question.
Exactly. Yeah.
I guess also, like, how are we integrating people into the community? Are we a welcoming community in that way to integrate people in, so that way they can kind of feel that home? We moved here from Oregon in 2008. Okay.
Yep.
And I was young at the time. I won't say how old, because then people will try to do some math. My age shall remain anonymous.
Okay.
But my dad, one of the things that my dad really liked about this town is we moved from a place where the head was down and you just walked past people and you tried to get what you were trying to do done, to a place where the head was up and you would accidentally, as we've all been there, and it's happened to probably every single person, whether you liked it or not, you engaged in a 5-minute conversation just trying to buy a pack of bubble gum. You know, you just stop by the grocery store, just doing whatever, and there's a conversation that's had. And there's that friendliness that comes in.
Yep.
And if we're going to grow, we're going to get people from other communities like we have. I mean, been here since 2008, so for 14, 15 years now, and love this place. I'm married, have kids. It's my future. But how do we go and integrate people into the community so that way we are able to keep that welcoming in Minot?
Well, I think it's always there. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why I have always stayed here. I think Minot has, I think I've made the comment before that they have the best, most caring people on the planet.
Wow.
And the other thing, Jonathan, is it's more the bad ones that come in. It's not, I think Minot is so welcoming, it really doesn't matter. And most people fit into the community. And I know I've talked to a lot of people that have been in the Air Force and they were stationed here, and they go somewhere else and they end up coming back here. You know,
right.
There's a lot of people in this town that are retired from the Air Force that came back here to retire.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Now, some people say we're not welcoming because of social issues, and we've already kind of addressed it. But Human Relations Committee brought out a lot of things, even some saying that getting on the topic of racism and things like that as well in the community. Do you think we do a good job of being open, or is there change that should happen? I mean, you guys run on the slogan, we can do better, right?
Yep.
So is there change that should happen with how we are open to the different social aspects?
You know, I think at the candidate forum I mentioned, I really don't see that in Minot. I just don't. Just, you know, with the people and stuff that are here. And like the Human Relations Committee, I just got the feeling myself it was being forced on us when I don't even see it happening. Most people don't even see it happening in Minot. And again, that's why the social issues like that, I just don't think it's, you know, city government's job to do that. We should be, you know, doing the essential services and things like that. And I have no problem with the community because they're good at it.
Yeah, that's good. Second point that came from the city satisfaction survey, there was concerned about the involvement of the public in decision making. 18%, only 18% feel that they are satisfied with that, with how involved the public is in the decision making. What needs to change in order to increase that number right there?
I think more, I guess, engagement with city council. I think I've also mentioned, you know, doing more public forums.
Okay.
And a lot of times the public forums that I've been to, they're almost like a survey. You know, they set it up where you only they only want certain input, or it's staged that way. And I think some of them that I've been to can kind of get out of hand. Mm-hmm. But I think more people, if people involved in it start trusting the city more, that they are listening to them, to me that kind of goes away. Yeah. Then it's more just like if you and I were talking over coffee. It's right. More what it would be in that place. And you know, people in North Dakota, Minot, are pretty trusting people.
Yeah.
And they just don't. I don't want to say that they don't complain a lot, But it just gets to the point where they've lost the trust of government.
Right.
It just, yeah.
Absolutely. One thing that the city does well is that they have their city council meetings after work hours. I think that's a great thing. So it goes and it creates the ability for that engagement. It's up to people to actually show up. Seems like sometimes there's like 10 people there, all the city employees.
Right.
So that's something that Minot could do better. If you want to be involved, maybe you need to get involved. But also, I think it comes down to what you mentioned about actually listening to the impact and creating those conversations that can be had.
Right. Yeah. I think the big thing is conversation.
Mm-hmm.
City council meetings to me are kind of a one-way thing.
Yeah.
You know, I've got up and talked there several times, and I sometimes I felt like I was just shot down.
Yeah, that's defeating.
You know, but we just got to keep going, and that's, I think, what's happened is a lot of people have done that, or they voice their opinion and they get the feeling that they're not listened to, and they just, I guess, give up and think, well, there's nothing I can do about it anyway. So that's another reason why I'm running.
Well, I mean,
just try to do something.
The Dakota would be open to facilitating some conversations for sure. So maybe we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
The third key point, respondents indicated the biggest issues facing Minot within the next 5 years include, and what I want from you is your view of what you view the biggest three issues are in the next 5 years compared to what the city of Minot feels. And it might align perfectly, okay?
Okay.
So one was high taxes, property taxes, finances. 80% felt like those three, tied together, those three is one of the biggest issues facing Minot within the next 5 years. Second issue was housing affordability. 61% felt that. And then the third issue is crime, 51%. Do those align with what you see as the biggest issues facing Minot in the next 5 years?
Yeah, those would be my three.
Yeah.
Crime might not have been my third one up there that high, but yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, so obviously we're going to hear just get rid of property taxes, but how do we kind of solve some of this stuff?
You know, some of it I don't know. I go back to property tax. If we got rid of that, can you think of all the money that we'd be spending? You know,
yeah.
The city collects $28 million in property tax.
Does crime grow into a bigger issue if we get rid of property tax?
I don't know. I don't know if it would.
And basically, will the police force be affected if we got rid of property tax? Might be a better way of asking that.
No, I don't think so. We'd be able to come up with ways to do that. You know, the one thing I look at is the police department. I know all the numbers and stuff they put out that I think it's around 80% of our property tax goes to police and fire.
Wow.
The other way to look at it is 12.7% of our total budget goes to police and fire. So it depends on how you put those numbers out, and that's why Minot can certainly afford their police and fire department. It doesn't have to come from property tax.
Right. So sometimes on these interviews, we do something crazy, and it's what we call our rapid fire round, and we just ask you random questions. They're not set up questions normally, but we might throw one in there. We won't throw one in there. You don't need to worry about it. So here we go. Are you a spicy food kind of guy or mild?
Mild.
I have to be that way. Do you enjoy chess or checkers?
Probably checkers.
Checkers, me too. Morning or evening?
Evening.
You're a night owl.
Well, yeah, I'm not a morning person.
Me either. Hot chocolate or coffee?
Hot chocolate.
Do you drink coffee?
Very seldom.
Wow.
It just doesn't seem to agree with me, I guess.
I don't like coffee. I'm finding we're a lot alike. It's crazy. Are you a camping or glamping kind of guy?
Camping?
Yeah. Definitely camping. Online shopping or in-store shopping?
Like to do it in-store as much as we can.
Yeah?
Yep.
Well, we got to keep that development coming.
Yep.
Growth. Fiction or nonfiction? Books.
Fiction.
Are you an Android or iPhone?
Android.
Oh, see, that's tough right there. That's tough. If you had your preference, would it be to go for a mountain getaway or spend the day at the lake?
Spend the day at the lake.
Really? Not? Yeah. Do you enjoy the mountains?
I do. I do. My son was in Boy Scouts.
Okay.
And we did a lot of camping with Boy Scouts. So yeah.
Yeah. That's neat. I was going to ask a set of questions, but I thought better of it. So I'll ask you this one instead. I'll ask two more questions.
Okay.
The first one's for my own satisfaction. What's your favorite restaurant in North Dakota?
My favorite restaurant in North Dakota. Boy. Maybe Red Lobster.
Really? In Bismarck. There you go. All right. And then lastly, what's the best part of Minot or expanded out to North Dakota?
The people.
The people. You want to know something? I should go and tally these up. And I don't know how many of these you've watched, but about 90% of the people that get on, like all statistics are lies, they say, but about 90% of the people that get on say the people. And so what do we do to keep that?
Be honest with the people.
Yeah. Just be real. Be transparent.
Be transparent. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So obviously a big day is coming up for you on June 11th. That's primary day. Yep. When this is something I don't know if people realize. Okay. But primary day, and I don't know if there's an official name, but that's what I'm calling it. Primary day on June 11th. We vote in the primaries, and the Republicans will figure out who their actual candidate is, and the Democrats will make sure that they have their actual candidates in place. And it seems like it gets pushed under the rug of what primary day is, because it's like, whatever, the general election is what we need to vote at. But on primary day, we're going to be voting in city council members. We're going to be voting in school board members. We're going to be voting in park board. These are not just people that will end up on a final ballot. This is the election. So this is a big deal for voters to understand. They need to get out and vote on June 11th. But when they do show up at that polling station, why should they vote for you?
If they want things the same way that they are now, then I'm probably not the person. If they want changes, and as our campaign slogan is, we can do better, and we will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on. If somebody wants to either reach out to you or support your guys' campaign, what would be the best way for that to happen?
We can do better, minot.com.
Okay.
And same on Facebook.
Very good. So just go there. You'll be able to read all about them, read their views, support, however it might happen. Well, I appreciate you coming on today.
I thank you very much, Jonathan.
Absolutely. This has been another podcast episode for Minot Matters here at the Dakota, and brought to you by Shock, Safe, and Lock. I'm Jonathan Starr. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube, become part of the Dakota community. We have some really exciting stuff that's coming up following this election and following the city of Minot. So be sure you're subscribed so you can get the latest on everything that we have going on. Thank you for watching this video, and have a great day.